My name is Robert B. Johnson. I'm known as B.J. Johnson, and my birthday is 11/26/28.
I see. And what is your family background? Did your parents immigrate to the United States?
Both, of course, obviously, both my parents are gone, and I have 3 sisters. They're all gone, and my brother, which was 5 years younger than me, is also gone. So I'm a survivor.
Wow.
And I wouldn't say that we had a close family relationship, but we got through. As I said, when I was 14, I was, one way or the other, asked to leave the house. And you're on your own. So it was, at the time, it worked out, but it was tough.
Wow.
I didn't have anybody to go back to, and it made a man out of me.
Where were you born, and where did you grow up?
Oh, I was born in Portland, Oregon in 1928, but that was right during the Depression, and my grandmother, which lived in Tacoma, Washington, which is out of Seattle, anyway, and she told my father, so I hear this, that she might be able to find him a job. And of course, when we got up there, I was 5 years old, it wasn't there, no job. So we, what do you say, starved. And I always said that when I grew up that I'm never going to be hungry again. Well, except for the chosen reservoir. I didn't plan on that.
Yeah.
So that's where we stand.
I see. What were you doing right before you went to the Korean War? Were you in school?
No, I graduated in 1948, and obviously I was all on my own. I couldn't possibly afford any college. I didn't have any money.
I see.
And
But you had finished high school.
yeah,
Okay.
but that was even tough because I spent all my time working. I couldn't play sports. I couldn't do any of that stuff. So.
I see. Did you know anything about Korea while you were a kid?
No, when somebody, I think my wife-to-be's mother heard something on the radio or something about Korea War or something of that nature, and I said, well, I was more interested in my wife-to-be than I was talking to her mother.
Yeah.
But anyway, I said, Korea, that sounds like something like funny to eat or something like that. And he said, oh, well, so before computers, grabbed a newspaper and see when off in the front page it said there was an attack or something.
I see.
So I said, well, don't worry about it, it don't affect me any. I'm not going to Korea.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, backing up, I was a reservist of the Marine Corps. And I just had signed up in May of 1950 for an indefinite enlistment. But I was also, as people know me, even as we speak, that I was, pardon the expression, goofball. I didn't want to learn. All I wanted to do was get a few dollars extra from the government, get a uniform, big man, and who knows, I might make some more friends, more girls. So anyway, that's what worked out, and then all of a sudden I got a letter from the government. Greetings. It says, we'd love to have you as part of the Marine Corps. backing up a little bit, I don't know the history is President Truman at the time hated the Marine Corps. And he said they were a bunch of propaganda people. And he said the best thing that ever happened in this country would get rid of them bums. We don't need them. There's no more landings in the Pacific. No more Iwo Jimas, none of that stuff. So besides, they're costing the government untold money for no reason at all. Get rid of them. So consequently, he cut the Marine Corps down to less than 75,000 people. And most of those people were in embassy duties. And nobody knew where they were. Nobody even cared. So that's when MacArthur needed people. He said, call in the Marine Reserves, get them in on here. And that's exactly what happened.
I see.
And I'm the president of a group called No Boot Camp Marines. We didn't go to boot camp. We had no training at all. And I had never fired a weapon. I had one in my hand, but it was when they issue a weapon in the Marine Corps, or I suppose the Army too, it's full of what they call cosmoline, and it keeps from rusting. It never been, so they gave everybody one of those. They said, well, you're ready. I'm ready. So when they got on the ship, all the guys that didn't know anything had to fire a lot of garbage and stuff in the water. That was my training before I got to Korea. And I knew nothing. When we were in the reserves, we went down to California, what they call summer camp, and I went to Tijuana. Spent my time down there, and instead of doing anything, learn anything. As I said, I've been known as goof off, so it could have killed me. Because I did not know nothing. I didn't ever handle a pistol. I never threw a grenade. I never did anything. So, yeah, get off the ship and as he said, keep your head down.
To backtrack a little bit, where were you when you enlisted?
Tacoma, Washington.
And then when did you arrive in Korea now?
Well, that's a little bit back up on that one too, because if you think of how to get to Korea then, it goes up through the Aleutian Islands, what they call the big curve. They say it's the shortest way. It's 16 days. But if you know Japan and Korea, it gets hurricanes and I guess they don't call them hurricane, they call them
Tsunami?
Or something. Anyway, we got the remnants of one of those in the Aleutian Islands. And if you've ever seen big chunks of ice floating in the water that you might be thrown into, how long will you last?
Right.
None.
Not long.
No, about 10 seconds. Anyway, they hit the tail end of one of these things, and it turned the ship on its side. And it destroyed everything down and forced all the stuff off the deck and punched a hole in I have the story about it. Punched a hole in the hull when water come in. So instead of going to Incheon, which was the 15th of September, we had to go to Kobe, and we had all these people with broken legs and stuff, and they had to take care of them and put new stuff on, new supplies. But so we were one day behind on the Incheon landing. We actually did not meet it that first day.
So second day.
Yeah. So everybody asked me how was that first day. I said, be honest, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
We were part of the task force to be there, but obviously one day made a difference.
I see. This is 1950, right?
September 1950.
Yeah. Wow. Mm. What military unit were you?
Was I in, besides the Marine Corps, the 1st Marine Division,
First Marine
7th Marine Regiment.
7th Marine Regiment. Okay.
Yeah, in fact, there's,
Oh. Let's show the camera your hat. So this is the hat. And you're referring to this one, the 7.
yeah,
Okay.
I have another
I'll
half.
take a photo of it
Another
later.
half with me, it says chosen survivor, that's all it says on it.
Wow, so you received no basic training?
Pardon?
No training, you received no training?
No, very little, I won't say none, but for obvious reasons.
Wow.
My brother-in-law is married to my wife's sister.
I see.
Anyway, they were about the same of us, but he was enlisted later, a little bit later. So obviously, he admitted that he didn't have any training. He wanted the training. He wasn't grew off like I was. So what do I say? So when we got down to Pendleton, they brought everybody down to Pendleton to get on these ships. We were there for 2 weeks, and I was on mess duty the whole time. I didn't go out and fire any weapons or anything like that. But that was a good place for me. It was kind of funny at the time, but especially right now. But yeah, but anyway, my brother-in-law was behind me, so he went for training. He didn't go with us. He wasn't at the Chosin Reservoir. He was in the next 1951. So he anyway. We were both very close, but I was really brokenhearted because I thought we'd stay together.
What's his name?
Gordon Kinsman.
Gordon.
And his mind has kind of, I guess the only word to use is kind of gone, because he thinks that he was at the Chosin Reservoir. He was not. I mean, he was still getting training at that time, but because it's been 64 years or whatever, that he's confused, got convinced himself that he was with me. He was not.
I see.
So it's kind of a sad story.
Yeah.
Other than that, he's all right, but his mind is,
Right.
yeah.
Before I ask you more about the Chosin battle, can you tell me, so backtracking again, when you first heard about the Korean War breaking out, what was your reaction and how was your family?
Well, as I said before, I told my fiancée, I said, don't worry about it, it's not going to affect me, it doesn't affect us, it's other people. Then I get this greetings, and I changed my whole attitude. But like she said, don't, how long's it gonna be? I said, first they gotta find me. And I'm thinking of taking off to some place and live in a cave or whatever. I mean, I'm very patriotic, especially now. But at that time, I was more interested in fun and games, so that's what happened.
And when you finally arrived in Korea, what was your first impression of Korea like?
What am I doing here? Well, like I said, it had calmed down just in one day. The worst of Incheon landing was basically over, and if you read your history books, all of a sudden the enemy was heading back north. They'd run out of supplies and had lost so many casualties and so on. So the idea was just push them up We landed to Incheon, headed to Skimpo Airport, on up to Seoul, and Seoul was a terrible fight. I just even at my age, at what was 19 or whatever, and I thought that I've become a man with a realization that what are we doing? Why are we destroying all these buildings and it's awful. Little kids and everything without a home. Is it my fault or somebody else's? And of course, we were told that it's not our fault. I mean, our idea is, if there's any time in our history, as you'll find out later, we got to stop communism someplace. And this is a good place to start right now. We've already started, so we just have to keep going.
I see. Can you tell me also about the places that you were stationed at, places you were living in? What were they like?
You mean in Korea or?
Yeah, in Korea.
Well, I wasn't stationed at any place. And I was, for some reason, my job before Korea, I was an auto parts salesman. So obviously that means you have something to do with automotive. So when I got off the ship, they stuck me as a Jeep driver. They couldn't find anything else with me. I had no training. I couldn't be an infantryman. So, but yet everybody had to have a job, and that was mine. But as far as staying more than one day any place, keep going. Until they got done with Seoul, and then we went back down to Incheon again and got back on a ship. Went around up to Wonsan.
Wow.
And that's when they called that the yo-yo, because they had a minefield up there. And they'd lost a lot of Korean minesweepers and Japanese. And so we just went back and forth. And have you heard the story about Bob Hope, obviously? You know who Bob Hope is, a movie star. A very big entertainer at that time. He was going to give us a show when we got off. But because we were going like this, they had a show anyway, so it's always a joke that Bob Hope was landed before the Marine Corps did. It's always been hard to live that one down, and he used it in his itinerary many times. He said, "Who said the Marine Corps is invincible?" He says, "I was there long before they were." So that's a little tidbit.
Yeah. And so you were always moving around. How was the living condition wherever you were? How was the food, sleeping, and even how much were you paid?
How much what?
Were you paid?
None.
None.
No, we didn't get paid till long months later. Whoops, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Sorry.
As far as sea rations, you know what they are?
I've only heard of.
Yeah, it's out of a box, and the bad part about that was, obviously they're edible, and if you're hungry enough, you eat like dogs. I mean, eat anything.
Right.
But the problem was, if you look at the boxes, some of them were packed in 1939.
Really?
And World War II leftovers.
Wow.
And so consequently, like they have pork and beans and hash, I can't remember everything, but eggs and sausage. Some was awful. It was terrible. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, just sealed in the cans. But the crackers and that kind of stuff was completely just a bunch of crumbles. I mean, there's no even, I know maybe today would be better, but too long. I mean, it just, you open the box and it just kind of disappears.
Yeah.
So the idea is to have battering. In other words, I'll trade you a pork and beans for something else. And of course, as far as the good Korean people, that you can get a haircut or something for a can or something, or wash your clothes if you're there for one day or something, and tell them if you got to be by 5 o'clock, you got to have it back or whatever. And in my case, I was gone a good part of the time, so hopefully that they hadn't took my clothes and sold them to somebody. It was interesting.
So you had some interaction with the local Koreans?
Well, the ones that if we ever stayed any place at one time, but that yes, I would say so. But we never were. I mean, we were always moving, and but the Korean people seem to know when we're going to be someplace. They'd be ready to barter for something. They just know that, and I found out a lot more about that later, after the Chosin Reservoir.
I see.
So much for food and drink.
Did you also exchange letters with your family back home? They wrote to you, you wrote back, you had chances for that?
Yeah, I do. I have a book of all the letters I wrote.
Really?
Yeah, to my wife.
Did you bring them?
This American Experience has them. I loaned it to them.
I see.
Because they were same expression that you have. They said, "Oh, this is valuable."
Yeah.
And like I said, I have more stuff than most anybody as far as the Korean War or the Chosin Reservoir anyway. And as long as I can, I plan on continuing.
I see.
But anyway, these letters were. Well, there's a little bit of mush, and what do I say? It also told where we were to a point, because there was a little bit of censorship. Although I couldn't, looking back, I couldn't see it would make any difference, because even then everybody knew whatever the enemy knew what we were doing, and we knew what they were doing, and.
Yeah.
Without computers or whatever, so.
Right.
But anyway, we're.
How was your relationship with other foreign troops and also maybe Korean soldiers?
To be honest with you, I had hardly any contact. We have one Englishman here in the. And they've all disbanded because he's the last survivor of the 41st Commandos of England.
Wow.
He's only one left, so.
He's here today.
Yeah. Did you talk to him? Or?
I don't think I met him.
Oh, okay. Of course, he's in and out and everybody wants to shake his hand because he's a hero. And,
Yeah.
and he's kind of heartbroken because he had 3 or 4 reunions back every 2 years. He had quite like 10 or 12, 15, and they marched in uniform, with a British flag, and it was that way. And now, one.
Yeah, we'll be sure to interview him too.
Yeah.
How about any Korean soldiers? Did you work with any Korean soldiers?
Not
No.
really. Like I said, I was moving all the time, and I mean, I know other people did, and if I was to say, you read your history, you find out that the ROKs and their problem was that how they got those, they took them off the street, put a uniform on them, and now you're a soldier. And obviously, that's why they put it, whenever they could, they put it in with the Army and the Marines and so on, because they wouldn't last a day. Gone, shot, whatever. But they were most interesting. And we learned a little bit of their language at the time. I forgot most of it.
Yeah.
But they had to do something. I mean, your own country has to do some of the fighting yourself.
Yeah.
You can't depend on other countries to do everything.
Right.
So, but now I guess they have a very good fighting force, and they in their position they got to be ready. I don't trust anybody. None of us do. We'll talk about it. That's a beautiful, Seoul is such a beautiful city. It looks like New York City or something. At night, beautiful, big freeways, free everything. I haven't been there, but I've seen enough. But it's just like drawing a line in the sand. You don't know when that sand's going to crumble.
Yeah.
And I hope it never happens in my lifetime.
Same here.
Because I love Korea.
Okay, I want to ask you more about now, like the battles that you were in. So you were a part of the Chosin Reservoir battle.
Yeah.
Any other battles that you can name that you were a part of?
Well, obviously Seoul,
Seoul.
Incheon. But nothing like the Chosin Reservoir, because these other ones we had all the good cards in our hand. That one we questionable who did.
Yeah, then can you tell me more about the Chosin Reservoir battle now? What I've heard a little bit about it, that it was the
Yeah,
coldest.
well, of course, one of the biggest problems was supplies. If you look at any of those pictures in there, it's more or less a expanded wagon trail, 78 miles, cut through mountains and stuff, and at the time, to start with, it was very dusty from Hongdae and Ham Hung, all those places down there. But as the weather all of a sudden started turning cold, and it went from like 40 degrees quickly up to 100, 120 or below zero. I mean, it was really cold, really ice cold. That's why I have cancer all over my body, because everybody's skin was frozen and dead. The cells died. But that's something else. But what do I say? That the supplies, that was part of my job, is to drive the 78 miles down there on this wagon trail and get down there in one day and come back before dark. Which is, like today, it would be driving from here to halfway across the United States on the freeway. But when that happened, there were skirmishes. Of course, you know about General MacArthur. And of course, as we were just talking about that today, it comes up all the time that he said that there was maybe half a dozen Chinese laundrymen in Korea, and a couple Marines is all we need. That it's such a stupid thing to worry about, because why would we send a whole force of Marines on for a couple people? that wasn't the way it was. In fact, gosh, I wish we were in the other room. But because he said there was no way for these Chinese to come across the Yellow River. There's absolutely none. We watch it all the time, and there's nobody coming. I got the pictures right there. I mean, thousands, hundreds of thousands coming across there. They do it at night, and they wear camouflage. You can't see them. So obviously, and he never admitted that he was wrong. That was the bad part. So when that happened, that was the start of the Chosin Reservoir campaign right there. And nights, they only fight at night. They don't fight during the day. So, and you know, I don't care how many people we have, they got many, many, many more than we do. They could afford heavy losses and still win. So anyway, and that happened to be the start of the Chosin Reservoir campaign was on my birthday. I told my wife, I said, when I wrote her a letter, I said, she'd heard about it, but she was scared to death, obviously. But I told her, I said, jokingly, I said, I'll probably never have another birthday like that. Roman candles, gunshots, flares, bugles blowing and everything, all celebrating my birthday over there. And later on, years later, we read these letters all the time, every so often, and she says, I guess we can laugh now, but I bet you weren't laughing then. I said, no, I wasn't, but I wanted to make you feel it was not quite as bad, but it was.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and that went on for, you know, a good part of the rest of November and into December, when they basically ended on the 24th, the day before Christmas.
Wow. So some of the men here, some of the veterans here, you remember being with them there?
Well, not exactly. Most of the ones I was with are all gone. But everybody knows me in this place.
Yeah.
I don't know why, I can't remember their names, but they all know me. I mean, I'm not unusual to any of them.
Would you be able to pinpoint like the most difficult moment, most difficult situation you were in?
Well, probably it wasn't, hadn't it? You probably wonder about this, but it had nothing to do with the chosen few.
Oh, okay.
I was just before the Chosin Reservoir campaign. I got in a serious accident.
Yeah, can you tell me about that?
I was in a Jeep and got hit by a big truck head on.
Where were you?
Down below someplace too long ago.
Not Seoul, not
yeah,
Incheon.
they had a big convoy of trucks, and it had to be sometime before that because it was dusty. You couldn't see a thing. Then I pulled off as far as I could. Well, like I said, it's not like a freeway. I mean, it's just a narrow deal. And the next thing I know, I'm flying and went through the windshield. And I still got a big scar on the top of my head, part of my hair. But anyway, and I had an officer with me. They were checking out something, I don't remember. But anyway, and he got thrown out, but he just went to the side. He was sitting over the passenger side. But I went straight ahead bent the steering wheel and went right to that, but as I told my wife, I said, I never can remember exactly how I got out of the situation and went back to where I was supposed to be and so on, and they wanted to they wanted to court-martial me because I destroyed some government property. And I was very upset. I can remember that. And I said, you do what you have to do. I said, and I'm thinking this is one way to get out of here. But as was, it just kind of went away, and I went to the sick bay, and they patched me up and told me I was very lucky because I could have got killed without the enemy. But that was one of the things that happened. And are you familiar with the different towns in and up to North Korea?
In North Korea, different towns?
I mean, like where this happened is Udamne was the highest part that we went to. There was a few that went a little bit further, but that was basically. And then Hagaru was the supply depot.
Yeah.
And Coterie was down below that. But when we were coming down out of Udamne, that took about 2 days. It was only 14 miles, I think, but there were so many firefights, and but that was kind of a backup story too, because people like me, they had no training. Well, that's why they put you in some other job like driving their Jeep or something. But on the other hand, their Marine logic is always, every Marine is a rifleman when you need to be. That's your first order of business. Forget what you usually do and lay down on the ground and forget that. But anyway, every vehicle was loaded with wounded, because later on in the war, the helicopters kind of came in and so on, but at that particular time, there was nothing. So, and they're seriously wounded, badly, probably dying. Anyway, so all the vehicles, including the one I was driving, was just packed with wounded. And we went down, it was about maybe a mile or so out of Hagaru, if I can remember. Anyway, and the road is cold, really cold, and the road is solid ice. I slid into a ditch, and all these wounded got.
Oh no.
So they didn't. I mean, they were really, most of them were so cold and everything. It was beyond. It probably didn't hurt anymore anyway. Didn't turn over, just slid onto the ditch, and so we put all these, jammed it on already loaded trucks and stuff. We put more of these wounded from what I had onto it, and took them on into Hagaru. But when we got there, as I was saying, I'd already lost one Jeep that was destroyed by another truck. And they, what do I say? Oh, we got that there, and well, actually, I was starving. Just Tootsie Rolls. That was saved arm and charms. Anyway, and this officer said, Mr. Johnson, what did you do with your Jeep? Did you park it over there? I said, no. I said, it's about a mile or so out back toward Udamne. Well, why did you do that? I said, I slid off the road and couldn't get back on. So we put all the wounded in another truck and put them in, and we hitched the ride ourselves. He says, we need every vehicle. We can't afford to lose any. He said, there's a guy over there with a big army wrecker. Get a couple guys and go back out and get that Jeep out of there and drive it back in. No man's land. Quiet, nothing. So we did that, went back out there, and like I said, it was bitterly cold. And the way it's so cold that you can't reason what to do. what am I doing, or what am I supposed to do? You can't think. And you can ask anybody else the same story, and whatever they were doing. I mean, they're just kind of zombies. Zombies is a great word because you're just like on the movies, you're just doing whatever little thing you have to do. Anyway, so we brought this Jeep back in, and I told my wife many times, I said, when she asked me about it, I said, well, because I wrote her a letter later on, and I told her, I said, I don't remember, and at the time I couldn't think about being scared. I could care less. All I don't want to do is do whatever somebody said, do that, I'd do it, whatever. So we got back, that was the end of that story, but nothing happened from it, but it was only the three of us in one vehicle, and we didn't know how soon somebody was going to shoot us, because it was 3 people against who knows how many, but it didn't happen. So that was some of my experiences out there, and besides having many close calls and unknown that I couldn't tell you about.
So you mentioned your head cut. Do you have any other wounds? Were you wounded or anything else?
Well, not exactly, but I don't have any feeling in my fingers.
Oh, really?
And I don't have any skin on my feet.
Really?
Yeah, I have frozen. Oh, that's the next chapter. Because by that time we got down and they evacuated us down to Busan by ship. Went on, you know, her Mason?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Masan?
they call it something else, I think, now.
Maybe Masan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's about 30 miles west of Busan. And they call Busan now Busan.
Yeah.
And so I know a little bit about that stuff, but
Yeah.
at our time it was Busan and Mason.
With the P.
Yeah, so anyway, actually, in a sense, it's a wounded, because when I went over to Korea, I wore a size 10. When I got out of the Chosen, I wore 15. And they couldn't find any shoes for me. So after 30 days, they got refitted and new people and stuff, and they went back up to more war. But I couldn't go because I was walking around with my shoes, the toes cut out, like sandals. And they kept saying, we're trying to find you some shoes. And that's the speaker, they're still 13s.
Wow.
And they never went down but 2 inches, so. And as far as this part, I live with it. So, but the shoe part, I mean, they just kept me there, and I didn't have a job. I was a mail clerk for a while, and I hauled supplies, I did pump gas. I wasn't necessary, but they couldn't get rid of me because they couldn't even send me home because I had no shoes. I was a man without a country.
Oh my goodness.
So that was where I'm at. Like I said, I'm still wearing 13, some cases 13 and a half. So,
Oh wow.
so I was lucky I didn't technically get shot, but I have residue that's still lasting the rest of my life.
And right now your hands is because they've always been
Yeah, I
frost
said I can't straighten my fingers out, so,
ever since the war.
yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
So, like I said, if you interviewed 50, 100 people out of here, that's part of it. They'll probably all tell the same story as far as residue lasting. And that's life.
Wow.
I figured I'm a very patriotic person. I did my duty for my country, and ask of all of us, we'd all do it again. Because there's only one way to stop some of this stuff is to fight it.
And at such young age,
Pardon?
and you were so young, you and
Well,
everyone.
I wasn't that young, really.
Really?
I-
20 years old?
No, I've said that, but more I think about it, it was too late to tell you, but as I said, that the chosen battle started on my birthday, the 26th of November, and I was 22. I was known as the old man over there.
Wow.
Hey, Dad. Yeah, most of the guys are 16 and 17. I mean, they're still in high school, and I've been out of high school for 2 years and whatever. So, anyway, like I said, a lot of them were still kidding me about this. I go, "Hi, Dad." I said, "Hey, that was over there, not here."
Oh, wow.
So,
I don't know,
we just
still
have
so
a-
young. Still
yeah.
so young, yeah.
That's true. I mean, well,
Oh.
if you ever went down to Camp Pendleton, you been to Camp Pendleton?
Uh-huh.
Did you ever go in the mess hall?
I haven't visited there, no.
Oh, okay. If you did, and you watch how young those guys look, and the ones that you think are privates or something, they're first lieutenants or captains maybe. I mean, they're maybe 20 years old or so, officers.
Yeah.
And once in a while, I've had the luck of when we've been over there to be invited to eat with them. And yes, I'm eating with them, but I can't help but staring. I mean, I think it looked like Boy Scouts.
Did you then, since you mentioned all these difficult memories, how about any happy, rewarding memories from the Korean War? Do you have any happy memories, any fun memories from the Korean War?
Yeah, when they said you're on the go home list. There wasn't too many happy memories because, like I said, my feet hurt and I seemed to be forgotten, and but that was probably one of the few happy memories that I can really remember. They have what they call a go home list every month, first of every month, put on a bulletin board. Nope, not this month. And it's 12 months is supposedly is the limit over there, but on the other hand, there's an asterisk. If you're not in a war zone, per se, that in some cases there's no limit. But because I have extenuating circumstances, that was in January when I got out of that, and in September, which I went over in September, so 12 months, but on the other hand, I wasn't in the battle zone. So there's no really limit, according to the rules then anyway. So, but on the other hand, if you have extenuating, as I said, because they can't give me any shoes to do anything, how can I stay? Well, what am I good for? Nothing. So, now all of a sudden my name's on the list. Hey!
Wow.
So, I went on the ship with my toes sticking out. Got home, and of course I got to get shoes here, no problem. But
Yeah.
over there, they just didn't seem to ever come together.
Wow. So then, do you remember exactly when you left Korea?
I think it was, it must have been about this, let's see, September. Gosh, it's hard to remember. Well, let's see. I arrived home on October 6th, I think it was. So it was, and it takes 16 or 17 days So if your math's better than mine, I mean, and
This
that's
is-
up, I would say approximate.
Yeah. 1951.
I got home, yeah, 1951, yeah.
I see. Wow. Okay. And what did you do when you got back home?
Got married.
Yeah.
And I went back to my old job,
Back in Tacoma?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and then the boss kept track of me, and anyway, I became manager when I came back.
Yeah.
I was just a worker before that, but I think it was kind of a reward for my service, indirectly. I mean, never thought too much about it, but
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question about it, and it really upsets your life. And if you're lucky like I was and came home, you still lost a year of your life that you wouldn't have done it otherwise. You'd be doing, as I said, get married, whatever, have kids or whatever. But that was then, this is now.
And people talk about the Korean War as the forgotten war.
Oh, definitely.
And when you came back, what was it like? What was the sentiment in the country?
We don't want to talk about it. I don't know, of course you wouldn't know, but if my wife was here, she'd tell you that there was shortages of food, not food, but like sheets and pillowcases and that stuff, or one to a customer or something like that. Whose fault is that? Mine, for causing a war. I caused the war. So, and as it did when we go to schools and stuff, the girls all want to ask about the home front, what happened. Well, what did you do while your husband was gone? Well, I wasn't married. Well, what about if you were, and so on and so forth. The last time we went to one of the high schools, did a history class, and I know this teacher. She's also does a lot of work like you're doing right here, and it's very important. And don't ever let anybody tell you it isn't. But anyway, when you went in there, these are 11th and 12th graders, and they're throwing paper airplanes and fighting and everything. And she says, and she knows me, and she says, "Remember, BJ," she says, "you've been here before," which we had. And she says, "You know what, this class is very disruptive. It's very hard to teach them anything. They don't seem to, pardon my French, damn. All they want to do is get this class over a bit, and it's right before lunch, so whatever." And she says, it's very difficult to read or anything. So we have all these boards and stuff I put around the room there, and some of them were looking at it, and the teacher said, "Well, this is so-so from the chosen few battle in North Korea, and you've been reading your textbook, so you know there was a war there." And they're still laughing and having a good time. And I said, anyway, she said, "Well, anyway, they're going to presentation to you, and it would be very appreciative if you'd calm down." Like, what are they, 17, 18, 16? I was there, I was one myself, so anyway, so then when we had one other person with us besides my wife, anyway, and we get to talk about that, and I also said, my wife is here, and she, for the girls especially, if they'd like to know what it was like in waiting for your husbands and boyfriends and so on, while you're gone or so on. So anyway, and it got so quiet in there, they had a wall clock that go tick tock, tick tock. And she said, and we finished it up, and they got up, and everybody gives a hand. And she said, if anybody would, they're going to stay for a while, if anybody would ask, they'll all answer all the questions. She said, we were there for an X hour. And she said, this is the first time since I teach that anybody ever paid attention. She said, they just think it's a fun and games area. She said, hope you come back. We did. A different class, another year, and the same thing happened. She says, I guess really they do want to learn something. But she was so surprised the first time. She says, we have a very difficult time. These are young adults, and they're smarter than I am, and they don't want to listen.
What do you think? What do you think that made them just be so attentive to you?
Oh, like I said, I enjoy this kind of stuff. I mean, that's why I bring this stuff down. It's a chore. It's a lot of work, and this is about what I have in here is about probably 20 to 25 years worth of accumulation and stuff that people have sent me, and I sent out feelers of all my friends. I said, if you have anything you'd like to donate, same story.